Hi, welcome and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Oline and I'm a knitter from Norway, and this is my knitting podcast. Here we talk about finished objects, whips, plans we have, yarn we have gotten, yarn we want to get, just all things knitting. But before we get into that, I'm going to talk about what I'm wearing, and I'm wearing my sweater number 14 V-neck. I'm going to try to show it to you. This is by Myfavoritethings.knitwear, and this was my April project this year of my 12 sweaters a year, one selfish knit each month. This was my April project. I chose to knit my sweater 14 in a bit of a different yarn combination than the pattern calls for. I think the pattern calls for 1 fingering weight and 2 mohair, but I didn't want mohair, so I went for 1 strand of drops puna. Let's see if I have it here. I have it in another color. So 1 strand of drops puna. It's like a very, very, very thin DK weight. It's 110 meters per 50 grams. It blooms quite a lot when you wash it. This is 100% alpaca. And then I went with 1 strand of drops baby merino. So combine those, just in a different color of the puna, of course. And that's what I made my sweater with. Since I decided to make it with a strand of like a kind of DK weight instead of 2 strands of mohair, my sweater is definitely a bit heavier, and my gauge maybe is a bit off, making it a bit bigger. But I really love the fit of it. This is one of the sweaters I've used the absolute most since I finished this. I'm just, if I wake up early in the morning with my son, late at night, if it gets a bit chilly, if I'm just going to throw on something quick before heading out, this is my go-to. I really love the big sleeves, and I love folding the rib over like this. I do that quite a lot. I love the deep V. You can do it like that. You can go like that. I'm not very good at describing it, but it's very adjustable. And maybe my favorite detail is this split here, where it's a bit longer in the back. I think with such a big oversized sweater, having a split ribbing at the end is really nice, because then it just doesn't stick to your hips, it just flows around. So I'm a big fan of this, and the fact that it is a bit heavier, it also makes it feel like you're kind of getting a hug from just this big cozy sweater. So I really, really, really love this, and I actually want to knit another one. The only thing is I'm a bit torn between knitting exactly the same one, because I love this one so much, or if I would want to knit the sweater 14 with like the round neck, just to get some variation. So I thought I would end up with 2 like completely the same sweaters. But yeah, I would really recommend knitting this. Another really nice thing about this is because you have so huge sleeves, you can knit the whole thing on a 40 centimeter round needle instead of having to use DPNs on the arms or magic loop. So that's another really great thing, and it's just super comfortable. The only thing is that this sweater, you can't really cook with it or anything, because the sleeves are very much hanging over your hands, and since they are so loose, even though you like pull them up, they just go back down the moment you start moving. But I have a lot of other sweaters that are more form-fitting, so this was perfect. I think this was maybe the first or second V-neck I ever made, and it's definitely the most oversized sweater I've ever made, and it's filled a gap in my closet that I didn't really know existed, and I love it so much. But yeah, I think that's enough about the sweater number 14, but I do really recommend it. Now that we've talked about that, we can move into my whips, and I have a little sheet here just to remember everything. I did want to continue to decrease my whips. Last week I had managed to decrease my whips and I was down to 4 whips. I think the week before that I was at 7, and I do really want to have as few whips as possible because it stresses me out, because then I work a bit on everything and nothing gets finished. But unfortunately this week I'm back up. I'm up to 5 whips again, but I am less stressed about it now than I was last week with fewer whips, and the week before that with all those whips. I am less stressed just because I know with my projects now, so many of them are nearing the finish line. I can like see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not, I know even with my knitting time spread across all of these projects, some of them will be finished in the next week, so it's just not stressing me out as much. But we'll just start with the Ankers blouse. This one has been a whip for a really long time. Not really because I didn't knit on it, but because I didn't have enough yarn. But I think not Monday, Tuesday I got more yarn for this, so I did a bit of helical knitting on the body just between the old skein and the new skein, so there wouldn't be a drastic color difference. Let's see. Can you see it? I don't think you can see it. The place where I changed skeins, so that's good. And then I used the old skein to do the sleeves, since they are part of the yoke, I feel like, and the yoke was with the old skeins. I just wanted that to be in the same yarn. So now I've used up my old skein and I am working through the skein I had to get to do the body, and I don't think I have that much left on the body. Maybe 10 centimeters and then the folded edge. So this is a project now, it's just knitting in the round on 40 centimeter round needle on 3mm. So that's like the type of knitting that I'm most comfortable with, the type of knitting I've done the most since I got pregnant, like baby knits on 40 centimeter, 3mm. I've done that a lot, so that's very mindless for me. I can just do that whenever, if my son's awake, if he sleeps, if he plays, if I'm walking around with him, I can just knit on this. So I think this will get finished quite quickly. It just depends, because I'm trying to use like my knitting time where I can kind of focus and where he sleeps to work on my more like demanding projects. But I definitely hope this will be done this weekend, just to kind of eliminate some whips. While I am working on like the whips with a deadline the most, I'm also kind of working on the ones that are the closest to finishing, just to eliminate some whips. But yeah, this is very soon done. I haven't told you, I think I told you it's the Anker blouse, but I'm knitting it in Drops Baby Merino in the color Petrol, and it's just a lovely dark blue color and it just makes me so happy. This is part of a twin gift, of a bigger twin gift that I'm knitting up, and I've knit the matching one before. If you've watched me, you've seen that, and that is in the ice blue Baby Merino, and I'm also in love with that. And I can just imagine myself, I'm thinking so much about ego knits lately and knitting all the baby knits, so a bit of a fight between myself and my thoughts. But I can imagine a ego sweater with stripes with this, and let's see if I can get the light blue. Where did I put it? I can't find it. I'll put it here, but imagine like this with the ice blue stripes. I think that would be really lovely. Like maybe the Sibling sweater by Penrose that she has released now. I think that could be really cool. Or the Lyon sweater maybe in stripes like that. I think I would want the dark as the base color. Oh, I think that would be amazing. But I have too many plans, so I can't get yarn for that now. But a girl can dream. And knitting all of these different projects in all of this different yarn and just having so many whips on my needles at the same time, while it's kind of a blessing and a curse because it stresses me out a bit and kind of over inspires me, but it is really nice to be inspired as well. It gives me a lot of like inspiration just for different projects and things I want to make. But at the same time, when I'm knitting up so many different things, it's kind of not the time where I need all of that inspiration. But moving into the next project, and this is also a twin knit for the twin gift I'm knitting, and that's the Miniaugustins No1, a blanket I'm knitting up. You have seen this before if you've seen my last podcast, but today I got it on a bigger needle. I got it finally on an Ankers 80 centimeter needle because my 80 centimeter needle was freed up, so now it's a bit easier to see some of the structure. But I must say the structure on this, it looks pretty now, but it's nothing compared to what it looks like once it's blocked and all stretched out. But yeah, trying to show you. This is knit in Drops Puna. This is actually the leftover yarn from my sweater 14. This is the color of Drops Puna that I knit my sweater 14 in. It's 100% alpaca, non-superwash wool, and I know some people are a bit afraid to use alpaca and mohair for babies, and I try to not use that much mohair, but I really like to use alpaca for babies because it is hypoallergenic and it is super warm. I feel that with my sweater 14 as well, since this is mixed with superwash merino though, but since the alpaca is untreated, and alpaca I think is 3 times warmer than wool, it warms quite a lot, so I really like to use alpaca, even though it has a bit of halo, so you can get a bit of fluff. But I knit a lot with alpaca for my son, and I think the first suit he wore when he was very newborn was in 100% alpaca, and he was never bothered by it, and I was never stressed out about it. And I've knit a lot in alpaca for babies since then, and I find that the pros outweigh the cons, and I didn't really find that many cons with it when I used it, even though I know some people are stressed about the shedding, but I didn't really have a problem with that. I also used mohair for my son. I used it in a couple of his bonnets and a couple of his pants, and I never had a problem with it. But it's kind of more about how stressed you are as a parent, I think, than how much the yarn really sheds, because it doesn't shed that much, and it is super warm and hypoallergenic. So if your baby is a bit sensitive to wool and maybe react a bit to wool, they might not react to alpaca. So I really enjoy that. But this blanket, I have made a fair bit of progress. I've done this much on the second diagram, so I'm very soon finished with that, and then I just have a couple more rows of some ribbing, I think, some twisted ribbing, before I can start on the border. So even though this is kind of the thing that's at the back of my priority list, this is just something I knit on whenever I don't have anything else to knit on. If I need to read the pattern for my other projects or something, and I can't really do that because I'm doing something with my son, I just pick this up and do a couple of stitches, because even though it is a lacework blanket, once you get into the structure you can kind of read where you are and do what you're supposed to, even though sometimes I forget to and then I have to frog and go back and fix it. But most of the time this is something I can knit on when I'm with my son without having to read the pattern. So that's why I've gotten a bit of progress on it. Hopefully I'll be finished with like the blanket in the round part by next week, and then I can start the border, because I do really want to finish this as well, just for the satisfaction of blocking it. I'm not the biggest fan of blocking because you have to be so, it's very tedious to move the needles and stretch it out and do it, but once you have blocked it, it's super satisfying. It's a lovely drape. All of the structures really come to life. You see them a lot better. Just they get a lot prettier as well. So it's definitely worth it to block this one, and I'm super excited to finish it just so I can block it. But yeah, definitely have a bit more to go, but now at least I can see my progress a bit better, since it is on an 80mm needle and not all the stitches are so cramped up that I can't really see anything. So yes, super excited about this one. And to be honest, I kind of just want to cast on another one, because I really like to work up these blankets. Even though it's a lot of structure, you just see it growing so fast, even though this hasn't gotten that much attention. So I'm kind of looking at my yarn behind me and seeing what kind of yarn I could use to knit up another one. So I'm kind of obsessed. But yeah, moving on to what's kind of my main focus, and yet at the same time maybe has gotten the least amount of attention, just because I hit kind of a mind block, just could not really motivate myself for this project, and that's the Sunday suit. I've done one sleeve and I'm very, very, very soon done with the body. I think last podcast I was here maybe, so I've done quite a lot, but I did that very early on in the week, and then I knit the sleeve and then all my motivation just went like poof. This is the third suit in an order I'm knitting up, and I'm definitely going to be a bit more wary of how much I take on when knitting for other people, because it kind of takes away the joy. One thing is gift knitting, that does not take away the joy for me, but knitting up an order is a bit different, because then you have very clear expectations, you have a very clear deadline, you're not just gifting something away. I think that's really fun to gift things away, and I think it's fun to knit things up for an order as well, but maybe not so much all at once. It's quite time consuming to knit up a lot of suits, but yeah, so I'm a bit unmotivated for this, but it needs to be done. Hopefully it will be done this weekend, because I get buttons for it maybe next Tuesday or Monday or Wednesday at the start of next week, and I want this to be done then, so I can just weave in the ends, sew in the buttons, and then be done with it, so I don't have to like get the buttons, sew the buttons into the other suits, finish this, and it just turns into a much longer process. I just want to bam, 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 done, and then send it. So that's my motivation for knitting this weekend. But even though I'm a bit unmotivated now, I think it is looking really beautiful. I really like this, what's it called? Sunset yoke or something? I don't know. I like the round yoke and the effect that the ribbing gives. I really like the look of the Sunday suit, even though that's probably the suit by Petiteknit I've knit the least. This is knit in tynn merino ull in, I don't know what color. It's from their fabrikkutsalg, where their like second-rate yarn goes. So the color doesn't, it doesn't say what color it is on the bandroll, but it's like this kind of grey, very whitish grey. I'm probably going to do the second sleeve tomorrow and maybe finish the body and then just work on the legs. But this is in the size 2 to 4 months, and in those sizes the arms are actually longer than the legs, so at least if I only have the legs left, that is the easiest part. So this will hopefully be done by the time I get the buttons. That's the hope. And then kind of my whip that's gotten the most attention this week, even though my knitting time this week, I'm usually very good at like planning what to knit on the different days and being very structured about what I knit on and having a very set plan. But this week it's just kind of been knitting on whatever is the closest or whatever I want, or just a lot more unstructured than I'm used to. But my Moby has gotten the most attention because my dream and goal was to finish it so I could use it this podcast. But I realized on Wednesday, maybe, I'm filming this on a Friday, I realized on Wednesday that I wouldn't be able to finish it and block it and it for dry and for it to dry before filming. So at that point I kind of started working a bit on other projects as well, but this is what has been getting the absolute most of my attention. I have finished both of the sleeves. Let's see, I can show it. I finished both of the sleeves. They are looking super cute with these cables all across the top. I think I managed to line up the cables so they are like at the top. I think I managed to do that. At least it looks like it. I don't know if it will still look like that when it's blocked. But now, and I've also finished all the structure on the body. I tried it on tonight. I tried it on at like 11 o'clock last night and figured out I wanted to do like the length of one cable more. So like from here to here, I don't know how many centimeters that would be. 4 or 5 maybe. I wanted like that length more. I can show the video of me trying it on. So after trying it on, I figured out how much more length I wanted, and then I spent, I think, 3 hours on and off knitting, getting to that point where I was happy with the length of it. And then I was going to start with the ribbing, and the only 3.5mm needle I have is this 40 centimeter one, so my needle is quite cramped with all of the stitches now. But I did manage to get in one row, and then I heard noises from upstairs from my son starting to wake up, and it was about 2 a.m. then. So I figured before he woke up fully, I would just go to bed and try to get in a few hours of sleep. And actually ended up sleeping mostly through the night. He had a little wake up at around 4, but then he slept in till 8:30 again. So actually got a lot of sleep even though I didn't go to bed before 2. But yeah, I didn't get to do a lot of ribbing because of that. I was kind of considering doing an all-nighter just to get a really good head start on the ribbing, because I am super excited to finish my Moby now, and especially now with so little left. The only thing I have left is the ribbing. I don't have to do the neckline, I don't have to do the sleeves, I just have to do the ribbing on the body, cast off and weave in the ends and block it, and then I'm good to go. And I'm just so excited, and every time I try it on, even though it definitely is snug when trying it on, I can just like see the vision of what it's going to be, and I'm so excited to be able to wear this. I think it's going to be just a dream to wear. So I have to do the ribbing. I think it's like 8 centimeters of ribbing on this super tiny needle, so I'm not super excited about that, but I think after having done this whole body in structure, I don't think 8 centimeters of ribbing is what's going to break me. So hopefully, I'm just saying, hopefully everything will be done this weekend, and that's not very likely, but I hope and dream and pray to be able to wear this next podcast, because this is also supposed to be my October project, Selfish Knit. So I want to finish it in October, of course. So hopefully this will be washed, blocked, ready, perfect, and on next podcast. Super excited to see if that's how it will turn out. And then my last whip, which I really wasn't supposed to cast on before I had finished a couple of my baby knits and my Moby sweater, is this. This is the very start of the Never sweater that I'm test knitting, so just heads up on that. Yeah, I'm test knitting the Never sweater for cozycore. I don't know how you say it. I'll write it. And this is the neckline. I just finished that last night. I haven't really done more than that, even though I'm itching to just knit on it. But as I said, I really wasn't supposed to cast this on until I had gotten a lot further on most of my whips. But then I got this yarn in the mail. I got this yarn together with the yarn for the Anker blouse. So I got this at the start of the week, and just having to look at this yarn for a couple of days and not being able to cast on, I just, after 3 days, I just couldn't resist anymore. I just itched to cast on, both because I really wanted to get started on the sweater, because I think that's going to turn out amazing and I just want to knit on it, and also this color. I'm obsessed. I've never knit anything in lilac for myself before, so I'm a bit like on the fence about it, even though I love the color, because it's not something I usually grab for, but also I'm trying to get more into pink, and this is like on the blue side of pink, and blue is what I tend to grab for all the time. So this is me kind of moving a bit out of my comfort zone while kind of staying in it. But yeah, just done the neckline, and from the look of this, I think this is going to be amazing. I love 2x2 ribbing. I love folded over colors. I think it's going to be amazing. This also has that really wide raglan detail, and I really love a wide raglan. Like the Friday sweater also has a really wide raglan, and that's one of the things I like the most about that. So I'm just itching to continue, because now I am at the point where I'm supposed to start the raglan, and that's all I want to do. I just want to work on this. I'm itching to continue, but I've told myself, I allowed myself to start on the neckline, and now I have to finish at least one whip before I'm allowed to continue. Preferably finish my Moby sweater before I continue, because I do want to just have one selfish knit on the needles at a time. This is going to be quite a big sweater. It's supposed to be super oversized, I think 50-60 centimeters, so even more oversized than this. So I'm a bit worried and excited to see how that is, because I don't have a lot of oversized things, but I really love this one that's oversized, so I think I'm going to love it, and this color and just everything is going to be just amazing. But I did need to get a lot of yarn, and I didn't want to miscalculate like I've done with the Anker blouses. I didn't want a repeat of that, so I got actually 1 kilo of Dropslima, 1,000 grams, and I think that's going to be more than enough. So maybe I can make like a Selma sleep suit or an Ankers sweater with the leftovers, because I really like to make Ankers sweaters with the Dropslima. But yeah, super excited. None of this is helping my stash, what's it called? Stash busting. I'm trying to stash bust before the new year, trying to not start the new year with, I think it's 16 kilos of yarn now, and that's a lot. November last year I had 1 kilo of yarn for comparison, and then it kind of exploded, and now I just have all of this yarn. But trying to de-stash and stash bust, and it's not going amazing, but I know when I finish, for example, the Moby, I'll be able to like eliminate 700 maybe grams of what's in stash, but I never see how much I've used up until a project is finished. So that's also something I'm looking forward to when I finish all of these whips, to see my stash kind of decrease a little bit. But yeah, it is very pretty to look at though, and I'm really happy with the yarn I have and the colors I have, because they are all colors that I really want to work with. And that's maybe also a part of the problem of me being over-inspired, because there's just so many things that I want to cast on all at once, and then I end up casting on everything all at once, and then I get stressed out because I don't want to have all the whips all at once. So once I kind of finish this whip thing I've got going on now, finish off the baby knits and finish the Moby, and when the only thing left on my needles is the Never sweater, I'm going to make a rule for myself and try to stick with it, and that's for me to have 1 selfish knit and then 1 baby knit. And if the gift knit I'm making is like a large sweater or an adult sized big garment, I'm going to have like that instead of the selfish knit and then baby knit. I don't want to have 2 large projects at the same time. I want to have like 1 small one, 1 big one, and I'm going to try to stick with that. We'll see how well that goes heading into Christmas season and really gift knitting season, but crossing my fingers I'll be able to hold myself accountable. One thing I've not been able to hold myself accountable to is that I said I would weave in the ends for all of my projects, and they are downstairs in like my crafting corner of the couch, but I've just not gotten around to weaving in the ends. I told myself, no, I'll be finished with the Moby before the podcast. I'll weave in all of the ends when the Moby is done, so I can weave in the ends on that at the same time and be able to block it immediately. But then the Moby didn't get finished, so I didn't weave in any ends. But before next time, I am going to have weaved in the ends, because now I just need to do it, and I'm going to get buttons as well next week, so that will probably be a whole day where all of my knitting time will just be spent weaving in ends, sewing in buttons, washing, blocking, doing all of that extra work you have to do when you're finished knitting. That's not my favorite part, so I'm not that great at following through with it, but next week it's going to happen. I didn't finish any knits this week. That's what happens when you have too many whips at the same time. So I have nothing to show for like the finished projects kind of segment of this podcast. Probably will have quite a few things, hopefully, next time. But this time, nothing. Another one of the reasons why I think I've gotten nothing finished this week, even though I feel I've made good progress on most things, is because I have gotten a bit less knitting time. At least like very good and focused knitting time, because I have been going to bed at a reasonable hour, for one. I've not been spending like as many nights like awake until 5 o'clock to knit on stuff, just trying to adult and be responsible and go to bed at a reasonable hour. That has stolen a bit of like my very focused knitting time. And also I've started working a bit before, but now I'm more into working, like I'm working a bit more. I'm working like some evenings in the week and then some weekends, and this weekend I worked, and I can show some footage. It's very nice to be working, at least that kind of job again, even though it is taking a bit of my knitting time, but it's very cute people I'm working with, and I have my cute little helper with me, and I have my sister with me as well, just so she can look after my son when I'm doing stuff he shouldn't be with me doing. But yeah, he is very cute as my little helper, and the animals are very cute, and sometimes I even manage to sneak in a little bit of knitting. But yeah, that is definitely stealing a bit of my knitting time as well. And yeah, just afterwards maybe I'm not like in the mood to knit as much or as fast or as focused, because I just want to like lay on the couch and chill. So it is kind of taking my knitting time in more ways than one. But yeah, mostly I'm talking about this just because I wanted to share with you. But yeah, and also I've already shown the yarn I've gotten, so there's nothing really to show for that segment either, because I've already done it. I got the drops lima and I got the extra skein to finish my Anker blouse. So I thought, since both of those kind of I won't have anything to talk about for those this time, I thought I'd share some plans. And if you watched me before, you maybe know I have quite the big list of plans, and it's actually gotten a few check marks lately. My son has also helped me color it a bit. But I have quite a long list of plans I want to be able to make before Christmas. But this week I've also been on Instagram. That's honestly so dangerous when you're inspired and like over-inspired and just want to cast on to be on Instagram, because oh my god, people are designing so many pretty things, and I'm just discovering new people every day and new patterns, and I just want to cast on, buy yarn, cast on. Super dangerous. But I've found especially 2 patterns that are definitely going on my list. I think they have to be at the bottom of the list, but I'm very bad at following the list. So even though I hope to get better at following the list. We'll see when I end up actually casting on this. But the first one up of my plans that I've been kind of obsessed with this week is the Fridagslua by Aftenstrikk. I'll show pictures of the patterns here. And this is, what's it called? A hat, a beanie. But it's a cabled hat with kind of the same vibe as the Moby, in my opinion. It's a bit different, some of the cabling is a bit different, but it has the double moss stitch and cables. And I'm going to have leftover yarn after I'm finished with my Moby. I'm going to have a bit of charisma and some mohair, so I thought I could do the Fridagslua. I have one Oslo hat from before, so I don't have that many hats, so it would be nice to get an extra hat because we are a lot outside with my son, and it is quite cold here. It is like around 0 degrees most of the time now, so would love to get a hat. And then also today I saw the Augustines number 30, and oh my god, it's so pretty. And I'm also working on the blanket that I am now, and it's kind of giving the same vibes. I love that blanket. I think it's so pretty, but I've never gotten to keep one of those blankets because I discovered the pattern too late. My son wasn't using blankets anymore, so it would be really nice to kind of get to make something with the same vibes that I would get to keep. And also imagine this but in like a white or cream and kind of maybe more fluffy. I think that would be perfect as a shawl over a wedding dress maybe. And as you know, I'm into knitting for my, if you've watched me before, I'm into knitting up things for my wedding day. And I have to say thank you so much for everyone that left so encouraging, motivating comments on the last video where I talked about knitting my own wedding dress. It really motivated me to do it, and you all had way more faith in me being able to do it than I had. But after all of those comments, and quite a few left tips as well, I do think I'm doing it. I think I will be casting on and kind of beginning to try to make it at the start of next year, just because I have a lot of things to finish up before that time, because I want to kind of de-stress and just put my focus towards that to kind of make it as I want it to be and not have to stress around it. But I do think the Augustines number 30 would be so cute over wedding dress, but also just as an accessory in general. I think it just, I just wanted to cast on immediately once I saw it. Amazing. So that's it. But I think if I didn't end up knitting my wedding dress, or if it didn't work out, if I at least had the Augustines number 30, that would at least be something knitted by me I could wear. I'm a bit over-inspired. Just wanting to cast on all of the things. I also have yarn for another eagle knit here waiting on me. I just keep looking at my drop daisy. I have it close by just so I can cuddle with it really. Oh, I want to try this. I haven't gotten to knit anything with it really yet, so I might honestly knit up a swatch just a bit. Yeah, that was all of my whips, all of my plans, all of my rambling. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a like and a comment. It means a lot to me when you do. And if you want to see more from me, please subscribe. Bye!